Hi everyone, today is Wednesday, May 3rd, and I am out today, so I made a recording of today's lesson so that you can watch it. Alright, so we are going to discuss for a little while the Daughter of Invention story that we read yesterday through the play Pause It, and then we're going to do some questions. Our objectives for today are to be able to identify the character traits of the characters, especially Poppy, but also Mommy and Yolanda. And we are also going to examine the content, language, and themes of the story. Our word of the day is iconoclast. We don't often have a word of the day, but I thought this was a really important word and works really well for today's lesson. An iconoclast is someone who attacks and seeks to overthrow traditional or popular ideas or institutions, or somebody who's like a rebel, somebody who's maybe a dissenter. See if you could think of any other synonyms for the word iconoclast. Let's do a little review from yesterday here. On your own, let's take a few minutes here, well, maybe just a minute, and see if we can answer on our own these questions here, and then I'll very quickly go over them. Okay, so the Garcia family lives in America, but is originally from the Dominican Republic. The narrator has been asked to write a speech for Teacher's Day. So this answer here is write a speech. She feels a bit nervous about this task. She doesn't really want to do it. She doesn't know what to write about. She feels like it's very uncool to be up there reading a speech. Doesn't really help her become popular at school, and she's already struggling with that. So she's feeling a bit nervous. And lastly, she gets her inspiration from the poetry of Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, whose poetry we actually read earlier on in the school year. Little character sketch here on Mommy. She's a very distinct personality, and in the very first half of Daughter of Invention, Alvarez focuses almost exclusively on the mother. The mom, like the dad, is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, and she's a real character. She's quirky, she's original, she's a kind soul. She tries to use English correctly, but she fails a lot of times, and she makes these kind of memorable and endearing, kind of cute little errors with the English language. That makes her a memorable figure, I think, to readers. Her main hobby is coming up with ideas for inventions. She's a very creative kind of person, can't really sit still and be a traditional mom. And Alvarez describes her as constantly sketching images of the devices she thinks up and then sharing her drawings with her daughters and her husband, which exasperates them at times, but they also love and respect her. And you can see that in the story. So like I said before, in the story, Daughter of Invention, Yo-Yo's inspired by the poetry of Walt Whitman, and it helps her come up with the infamous speech that she writes. Think about the line that inspires her so much. I celebrate myself and sing myself. That was a line from Walt Whitman. I believe we actually read that ourselves earlier on in the school year. What does this line mean to you? Take a moment and think about what the line means to you. It's really about celebrating individuality, free expression, loving yourself, loving everybody else, and sort of seeing your own unique identity and self in the world. And for some reason, Yo-Yo finds that especially inspiring. Maybe because she comes from this strict household, maybe because she comes from a country that had a dictatorship, but something about this poem inspires her and lets her mind kind of run free. And that's what inspires her to write this speech that she writes for school. Just a little review here on Walt Whitman. We read him before. The line that she likes, that she uses, is, "He most honors my style who learns under it to destroy the teacher." Now, Whitman was an American poet. He also wrote essays, and he was a journalist too. And he's a true example of an iconoclast. Remember that word from the beginning of the period. Someone who seeks to overthrow traditional or popular ideas or institutions. That's what Walt Whitman was. He broke all of the established rules that were out there about writing poetry, and some of the rules of society as well. You might remember that his first book, Leaves of Grass, was actually banned for being considered obscene at the time. So it was a bit of a rebel, a bit of an iconoclast. And this is who Yo-Yo likes. This is what she's inspired by. If you remember, Whitman introduces the new form of poetry, free verse. Free verse has no set meter, no rhythm, no rhyme scheme to speak of. And the critics, the teachers that he speaks of, hated his work. And so that's kind of what he was responding to when he said, "He most honors my style who learns under it to destroy the teacher." It's kind of a dig at teachers who are this example or the epitome of tradition. And Whitman's all about breaking that tradition and breaking the rules. And Yo-Yo's all about that too, and she likes it. And this is the speech that she reads that her mom likes so much and that her father is horrified by. Let's talk about Poppy for a moment. The first half of the story, we don't really hear about him too much. He's kind of in the background. But we do get some details about him that we learn will become quite important later on. Details that we learn before the narrator reads that speech to him. So we learn that he's become relatively successful in America. He works at a medical center. I don't know what exactly he does there. If he's a doctor or a nurse, a janitor, I'm not really exactly even sure what he does. But clearly he's a well-educated man, but he doesn't speak English very well. So he's probably a bit limited on what he can do in America. He's still very much affected. In fact, I would use the word traumatized, in fact, by the fear and danger that infiltrated every aspect of his life in the Dominican Republic under the very evil dictator, Rafael Trujillo. And this was completely biographical. This was what actually happened to Alvarez and her family. He was excited about his daughter's opportunity to give a speech. He considered it an honor. And he told her to be humble and to praise others when speaking. And she kind of did the opposite in her speech, if you remember. So I'm going to stop there. That was just kind of what I wanted to introduce to you today. Then I'd like you to work on an assignment. The assignment is some questions about Daughter of Invention, the story that we read. You can find it in the course under Content, Unit 11, Assignments for Unit 11. And there it's a Google form that you can fill out, get points for, and that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure that you stay here in the room. And that you complete today's assignment. Have a wonderful day, everyone.